Should we panic yet? There was a very rich man once. He was known by a lot of people. I'd say the whole world knew him. And he had a lot of properties. The whole world also knew that, but only those that were very close to him knew that under those properties he had built acres upon acres of bunkers. And they were meant to be safeguards in case something bad came to happen one day. So, as a matter of fact, one of those days that he was going out to give out one of his famous monologues, he had his driver stop on the way so that he could get a snack. And long story short, he never made it to the convention center, let alone did he ever have the need to use one of his survival bunkers. It all came down to the patty in the fish sandwich, and it had not been processed properly, so a fishbone made it all the way through a quality check, and so he got the one patty out of 1 million in which the machine did not properly grind the patty, and the bone made it from the factory to his skillet and then straight into his throat. This made it close up. He was not able to breathe, and he passed away on the back of his limo. So I don't know about you, but I've been hearing a lot of people talking about catastrophic events that are incoming. They're unstoppable, and each one they mention sounds a lot worse than the previous one. And I would have to say, you're not the only one that has heard this, and this is not actually a coincidence. I can tell you that right away. But do you think this is the moment where we should begin to panic? To get our funds out of the bank, to move to the wilderness, to become monks, to start digging up underground shelters, that kind of stuff. And I have to tell you this. We are definitely living in the last days, but, and there's a big but right there, we have been ever since Jesus came to earth bodily. So you can actually read about the fact in Hebrews 1:2. It says, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son. So according to that text, and I'm not reading the whole thing, I'm just reading a chunk of it for you to have the idea. We have been in the last days ever since Jesus' bodily ministry, and that's for at least 2,000 years now. Now you can take this as one of them glass half full, glass half empty kind of scenario, but unless time starts going in the other direction, I can tell you if we are in the last days ever since then, we can only be getting closer to the actual last day. Then again, let me ask you this. Is the end of the world something that is unexpected? And the answer is going to be no. Even when it comes to atheists, they know that the end will come at some point. Yes, it will come at some point, but it could be anything such as the Earth's energy going out to the point that its rotation slows down, or because it moves out of orbit by some infinitesimal degree, or because the sun, being a star, becomes into a supernova or blasts itself into a black hole. There's just a plethora of reasons that could easily shake up and terminate all life in this very fragile ecosystem that we call life. So you have to have that in mind. And now I'm not being utterly negative here, but I'm just pointing out to a very visible fact, and anyone that claims that the end is coming is stating only what is obvious. And anyone that says or prophesizes that your life is going to end soon, they're not liars, but they're very, very cheap prophets. We are all on a one-way street to that eventual outcome. There's no going around it. So, as a matter of fact, I remember out of so many prophecies of the end, I remember this one where some lunatic wrote that there were 80-something reasons. I think it was 86 reasons that Jesus would come back in the year 86. And then the next year he came back saying, now we have 87 reasons why Jesus is coming back on the year 87. So, taking that into mind, I just can't help but wonder. Right now he has 2,023 reasons why Jesus will be coming back this year, and if anybody is still buying his trash, So you just got to wonder about that. Now, as far as anyone that's claiming to know a specific date, this is where the actual bottom line significantly changes. And that is, let me clarify this to you biblically. Firstly, God states that his fullness of his revelation came through Jesus. So once Jesus came, his revelation was complete. The whole thing he needed us to know is now complete. And any further revelation has ceased as far as the New Testament we have. There's no more new revelation coming in. There's no new book of Revelation 2 or a newer testament coming anytime soon. That's not going to happen. We already have the whole thing we need to have. Very basically, to explain this, Anyone that gives you a prophecy that's different from what's already stated in the Bible, you can immediately dismiss them. Anything they say is trash. You don't have to take it into consideration. And then there's some people though that they may get reaffirmation of the revelation that's already in the Bible, and as long as it does not contradict the Bible, you can actually listen to them. Bear in mind though that anyone that claims to give prophecy coming from God, they're actually accountable to Him, and that's the point where in the Old Testament they were put to death if anything that they said or stated that God would do would and that it would happen, if it didn't come to happen exactly as they said it would, they had to be put to death because they were false prophets. Nowadays, we're not going to go around killing a bunch of people on TikTok saying that the end is tomorrow or in 3 days or whatever. But you can definitely stop listening to them and stop following them and stop giving them your likes and your views and whatever, you know. As far as the so-called prophets, in the current days, we are warned in the Bible a lot about false Christ that will come. Also, that wolves dressed in sheep's clothes will come. They will actually come into the church, it says. And it says that some of them will be able to do signs and wonders to the point that if it were possible, they would be able to deceive even the elect. So you have to be aware of the fact and, take everything you hear from people with a grain of sand. There's really no reason why you would believe everything that's told to you, all right? Now, regarding panic, it's actually God's most repeated command in the Bible, where He tells us not to fear. And so be sure that that's not your driving force. You don't have to live in fear. You can actually live in God. When it comes to preparation, there is nothing wrong at all with being prepared. If not necessarily for the end of the world, be at least prepared for the end of your life, which any of the two things could happen any day without you expecting it. So just be prepared every single day. You don't have to be listening to people giving you a specific day. You should just be prepared for this any moment when it comes. Now, this message is not meant to dissuade you from seeking the Lord because the end of times may or may not be around the corner. What it's actually meant to do is to dissuade you from seeking Jesus only because the end of the world may be coming. A lot of people think of Jesus as a fire insurance. I can assure you he is a lot more than that. He's not here just to save you from hell and from all the catastrophic things that may or may not happen real soon. So, regardless of the end of the world coming or your last day coming, be sure to be prepared. Be with Jesus. Find Him out. You're the one that's gonna save you from all of this. So, if you actually want to be prepared, it's not about the bunker and the food you have underground. It's about how your soul is in standing with Jesus. And the only thing that can save you is the fact that He died for you on the cross. Now, what I can tell you though is, if you're gonna prepare, simply be sure not to be among those that God has to actually call them out and tell them, "You fool! This night your life shall be required of thee." And then then whose shall those things be which you have prepared? So that's what I have to say to you today. Be sure to look for God. You look for God in His justice of His kingdom, and everything else is just going to be added onto your life. You don't need anything else than Him. And I send you this message with a lot of love and blessings with a hug.